Okay, we're at the point now where we've done all our pre-call planning. We've got our story together. We know who our ideal prospect is, our target. We've role played. We've got our questions together, the objections we're going to get. Now we're ready to go make the sales call. And before any sales call, you've got to sit down and decide what is your objective here. With the HOTC situation we talked about, it was really the objective of that call was to get approval to go to the back of the shop and to evaluate the cleaning system. It wasn't to sell anything, it was to go back there, get that evaluation together so I could come back with a proposal. Many times it is to get an order, but you need to understand and put on paper, what is my objective today? What is getting the order today mean? So let's open the sales call, or should we call it the buying call? And we should. People buy on emotions and justify with logic. Emotions are important. They're the key to successful selling is emotions. Recent studies have proven the brain uses emotion to assign value and mark something as good or bad. It's how the brain distinguishes between what matters and what's irrelevant. And we have to make sure that we have people in the proper mindset and with positive emotions to be able to see what matters and to see what's relevant in what we're going to talk about, and to look at what we're doing as good and assign a value to it. In much the same way buyers use their emotions to determine the persuasiveness of your ideas and the significance of your products and services. And social psychologist Chip Heath says that that's what emotion does for an idea. It makes people care. It makes people feel something. And feeling something, pains, fears, wants, and needs, is critical to our success as salespeople. So before we get started, the very first thing we do in a sales call is we need to read the customer as far as what their emotions are. As we said, positive emotions can shape our perceptions and choices. Experiencing positive emotions boosts comprehension, enhances the mental capacity to make decisions, and increases receptiveness to persuasive requests. Study after study showed that creating positive emotions increases sales in a wide variety of situations. And there's work you can do, learning you can do on how to read the emotions of the person in front of you and how to change those emotions toward the positive if they are in fact negative. Negative emotions. We tend to think our colleagues use reason to make decisions, yet if you scratch below the surface, we'll always find emotions at play. So negative emotions we've already talked about are not good things for a salesperson or for a buying decision to be made. Another thing that attributes to our emotions, as many studies are out, is that we're at our happiest, we have the most positive emotions in the morning up till about 10 o'clock, and then again at the end of the day. That the middle part of the day is not a time to make decisions. It's not a time when our emotions are in the positive zone. So keep that in mind as you make appointments with people. How do you read emotions? Well, we communicate our emotions. Words are used accounted for only 7% of the messages communicated. The tone of our voice is responsible for 38%, and the facial expressions are composed 55% of our communication. So anyone can learn to read nonverbal behaviors. Even children do it. So it's just a matter of learning how to look, what to look for in facial expressions, tone of voice, to tell what emotional state someone's in. So now that we've got the customer or prospect in the proper emotional state, then we go through our buying process and use our sales book to ask the right questions, get the agreement. But as we said, throughout that process, we're going to get objections. And the number one rule about objections is to listen. Oftentimes, what you might perceive as an objection is just information seeking or clarification. So your body language, again, your emotional state, is crucial here. Let the customer talk, lean forward and listen, keep a pleasant disposition, and don't ever get defensive. Rule number 2 is restate, clarify, and legitify. I don't know if that's a word, but we used it. Make sure you understand the concern they are voicing. Example, that's a good question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking if the 7665 can scan a document back to your email address. Is that correct? Rule number 3 is explore and then question it. Even if you know you can handle the objection, figure out if it's a real objection. An example is this something you're currently doing today or something you would like to do going forward? Clarify, ask, question the objection so you got a really good understanding of it. And if it is a true objection, then you can think about how you're going to handle it. Again, based on the stories and overcoming the objections scripts that you put together in your pre-call planning. Number 4, overcome or minimize it. Answer all objections with confidence. Absolutely. One of the strengths of the 7665 is that it will take a hard copy document and scan it directly back to your email account. If you don't know the answer to the objection, of course, you don't want to try to come up with some answer out of thin air. You need to just put it aside, say, I'll get back to you. I really don't know the answer to that, but it's a great question, and let me get back to you on that. The best way I know to overcome objections is to tell stories. As we said, stories are the best way to get across things. People remember them, and especially stories about other customers who have faced the issue the prospect's bringing up and how they overcame it. So using stories to overcome objections, especially about people and their peers or other people in the community who have had that problem and you've helped them overcome it, those are the kind of stories that are really powerful. And as always, confirm that you've answered it. That answers your question, doesn't it, Carl? You've got to get agreement. Get them to verbalize on that trial close it. Yes, that answers it. We're good to go. I agree. I understand. Get them to say it out loud. Get them to verbalize that they're in agreement before you move on. So in our sales cycle or buying cycle, we have the close at the end. But as we said over and over again, always be closing, always be talking about, getting agreement as you go through the process. Those are trial closes. Smaller yeses lead to the big yes. So ABC, always be closing, trial closing. The best way to lead someone into making any sort of decision is to guide them through a series of small commitments consistent with the major decision to buy. At each stage of your buying cycle, the 6 questions, you should ask questions and get commitments before moving on to the next stage. I've said that many times, but it's extremely important. Why is it important? The amazing statistics on closing. 75 to 90% of all sales cycles end without someone asking a final closing question, asking for the order. Why do we want to constantly be getting agreement? Because there's an amazing statistic that 80% of buyers are ready to buy before the sales rep's presentation is complete or before you've gone through the whole process. So always be asking, always be getting agreement. I know you're waiting for this. Based on those studies, we know what? As a rule, salespeople don't close nearly enough or in a timely manner. It is almost impossible to offend or upset anyone when you close. So why did 75 to 90% of sales cycles end without someone asking a closing question? Well, fear of rejection. We think that we ask we're going to close, somebody's going to say no. 2, fear of crossing the line with the customer, that we're really going to upset the customer if we ask for an order. And fear of reinforcing the sales stereotype, that we're pushy, that we're just trying to do things for ourselves, we're trying to get an order and get out of there. And of course, something you've been told all your life is number 5 is silence. After you've asked for the order, shut up. I call it eating the powdered donut. Stop talking. Silence is the single biggest pressure you can put on someone. So let's summarize. First of all, beliefs about sales and selling and salespeople are mostly false. And it's very important that we understand they're false and that we really understand the truths if we're going to succeed. Everyone can sell. Well, we learned that ambiverts are the best salespeople, but that introverts and extroverts also can sell too, just not as effectively. Make your world smaller. In other words, less but better, not more, more, more. We can't be everything to everybody, or we'll be nothing to nobody. That's where stories come in. We have to have unique solutions in our stories that are valued by the buyer. And we can't have unique solutions, and they won't be valued by every buyer. They'll be valued by those with similar pains, wants, needs, and fears, the ideal customer slash prospect. They're the ones that will value because they share those same issues. Buyer's brains. We got to think about how the brain works when we buy versus how we want to go sell someone. So we put together the 6 questions or 6 stages that the buyer's brain's going through, and we're going to walk them through those. And then build a sales playbook where we understand our ideal customer, we understand our value proposition, our story, our message, and then we have a list of the questions at each stage. We understand the objections we're going to get, and we have written out how we're going to overcome those objections and the stories that we'll use to do that. And that'll all be written down, and we'll role play it. We won't try to go practice on customers, we'll practice on each other. And then we'll learn that playbook in our own words so that we don't have to think about those questions or those stories or those objections. We'll be really focused on asking questions and listening. And the objections and closing, we want to be doing that all at each stage of the sales cycle, the buying cycle. And we want to get verbal agreement at each stage before we move on to the next one. So with that, it's kind of an overview of what I think sales is in 2018 and what science says is the best way to succeed. Good luck and good selling.